taken steps to understand and address. I repeat that sentence, sir. The following measures will detail just how our government, under the guidance of PM Modi, has taken steps to understand and address the needs voiced by our citizens. My tax proposals are guided by this spirit. The objectives of my proposals are as follows. Personal income tax reforms with special focus on middle class. Rationalization of TDS and TCS for easing difficulties. Encouraging voluntary compliance. Reducing compliance burden. Ease of doing business, employment and investment. I will come to my proposal on personal income tax towards the end. TDS and TCS, rationalization for easing difficulties. I propose to rationalize tax deduction at source, TDS, by reducing the number of rates and thresholds above which TDS is deducted. Further, threshold amounts for tax deduction will be increased for better clarity and uniformity. The limit for tax deduction on interest for senior citizens is being doubled from the present 50,000 rupees to 1 lakh rupees. Similarly, the annual limit of 2.40 lakh rupees for TDS on rent is being increased to 6 lakh rupees. This will reduce the number of transactions liable to TDS, thus benefiting small taxpayers receiving small payments. The threshold to collect tax at source, the TCS, on remittances under RBI's liberalized remittance scheme, the LRS, is proposed to be increased from 7 lakh to 10 lakhs. I also propose to remove TCS on remittances for education purposes, where such remittances is out of a loan taken from a specified financial institution. Both TDS and TCS are being applied on any transaction related to sale of goods. To prevent such compliance difficulties, I propose to omit the TCS. I also propose that the provisions of the higher TDS deduction will now apply only in non-PAN cases. In July 2024, the delay for payment of TDS up to the due date of filing statement was decriminalized. I propose to provide the same relaxation to TCS provisions as well. The government under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi believes in Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas and Sabka Prayas. In line with this, we brought in updated return facility in 2022 for voluntary compliance by taxpayers who had omitted to report their correct income. Our trust in taxpayers was proved right. Nearly 90 lakh taxpayers voluntarily updated their incomes by paying additional tax. Taking this trust further, I now propose to extend the time limit to file updated returns for any assessment year from the current limit of 2 years to 4 years. I propose to reduce the compliance burden for small charitable trusts and institutions by increasing their period of registration from 5 years to 10 years. It is also proposed that disproportionate consequences do not arise for minor defaults such as incomplete applications filed by charitable entities. Presently, taxpayers can claim the annual value of self-occupied properties as nil only on the fulfillment of certain conditions. Considering the difficulties faced by taxpayers, it is proposed to allow the benefit of 2 such self-occupied properties without any condition. To streamline the process of transfer pricing and to provide an alternative to yearly examination, I propose to introduce a scheme for determining arm's length price of international transaction for a block period of 3 years. This will be in line with global best practices. With a view to reduce litigation and provide certainty in international taxation, the scope of safe harbor rules is being expanded. A number of senior and very senior citizens have very old national savings schemes accounts. As interest is no longer payable on such accounts, I propose to exempt withdrawals made from NSS by individuals on or after 29th August 2024. I am also proposing to allow similar treatment to NPS Vatsalya accounts as is available to normal NPS accounts subject to overall limits. In my speech in July 2024, I had promised that all processes, including giving effect to appellate orders, shall be digitalized and made paperless over the next 2 years. So I'm happy to announce that digitalization is being made operational now. In July 2024, we brought in the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme to resolve income tax disputes pending in appeal. The scheme has received a great response, with nearly 33,000 taxpayers having availed of the scheme to settle their disputes. I have a few proposals to promote investment and employment. It is proposed to provide a presumptive taxation regime for non-residents who provide services to a resident company that is establishing or operating an electronics manufacturing facility. I further propose to introduce a safe harbor for tax certainty for non-residents who store components for supply to specified electronics manufacturing units. Presently, the tonnage tax scheme is available only to sea-going ships. The benefits of existing tonnage tax scheme are proposed to be extended to inland vessels registered under the Indian Vessels Act 2021 to promote inland water transport in the country. Extension for incorporation of startups. We continue to support the Indian startup ecosystem. I propose to extend the period of incorporation by 5 years to allow the benefit available to startups which are incorporated before 1/4/2030. In order to attract and promote additional activities in the IFSC, I am inter alia proposing specific benefits to ship leasing units, insurance offices, and treasury centers of global companies which are set up in IFSC. Further, to claim benefits, the cutoff date for commencement in IFSC has also been extended by 5 years to 31/3/2030. Category 1 and Category 2 AIFs are undertaking investments in infrastructure and other such sectors. I propose to provide certainty of taxation to these entities on the gains from securities, to promote funding from sovereign wealth funds and pension funds to the infrastructure sector. I propose to extend the date of making an investment by 5 more years up to 31st March 2030. Personal income tax reforms with special focus on middle class. Democracy, demography, and demand are the key support pillars in our journey towards Vikasit Bharat. The middle class provides strength for India's growth. This government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has always believed in the admirable energy and ability of the middle class in nation building. In recognition of their contribution, we have periodically reduced their tax burden. Right after 2014, the nil tax slab was raised to 2.5 lakhs of rupees, which was further raised to 5 lakh rupees in 2019 and to 7 lakh rupees in 2023. This is reflective of our government's trust on the middle class taxpayers. I am now happy to announce that there will be no income tax payable up to income of 12 lakh rupees. So, average income of 1 lakh per month other than the special rate income such as capital gains under the new regime. This limit will be 12.75 lakh for salaried taxpayers due to the standard deduction of 75,000. Slabs and rates are being changed across the board to benefit all taxpayers. The new structure will substantially reduce the taxes of the middle class and leave more money in their hands, boosting household consumption, savings, and investment. In the new tax regime, I propose to revise tax rate structures as follows: 0 to 4 lakh rupees nil, 4.8 lakh rupees to 4 to 8 lakh rupees 5%, 8 to 12 lakh rupees 10%, 12 to 16 lakh rupees 15%, 16 to 20 lakh rupees 20%, 20 to 24 lakh rupees 25%, and above 24 lakh rupees 30%. To taxpayers up to 12 lakh of normal income other than special rate income such as capital gains. I read that again. To taxpayers up to 12 lakh of income other than special rate income such as capital gains, tax rebate is being provided in addition to the benefit due to slab rate reduction in such a manner that there is no tax payable by them. The total tax benefit of slab rate changes and rebate at different income levels can be illustrated with a few examples. A taxpayer in the new regime with an income of 12 lakh rupees will get a benefit of 80,000 rupees in tax, which is 100% of tax payable as per the existing rates. A person having income of 18 lakh rupees will get a benefit of 70,000 rupees in tax. That is 30% of tax payable as per existing rates. A person with an income of 25 lakh gets a benefit of 1,10,000 rupees. That is 25% of his tax payable as per existing rates. Details of my tax proposals are given in the annexure. As a result of these proposals, Honorable Speaker, sir, revenue of about 1 lakh crore in direct taxes and 2,600 crores in indirect taxes will be foregone. Mr. Speaker, sir, with this, I commend the budget to this august House.
तो देखिए, फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर ने जो सबसे बड़ा बजूका था वो एकदम एंड तक बचा के रखा और अब हमारे न्यूज़ रूम में बहुत चीयर हुआ होगा, मैं कह सकता हूँ इस चीज़ को लेकर, क्योंकि 12 लाख तक के इनकम पर कोई टैक्स नहीं है और अगर आप न्यू टैक्स रजीम में आ जाएंगे तो 75,000 रुपये उसमें स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन और जोड़ लीजिए तो 12,75,000 रुपये तक उसमें कोई टैक्स नहीं होगा न्यू रजीम में, ध्यान रखिएगा। और ये उनके लिए जो स्पेशली अगर कैपिटल गेंस के अलावा जो एक नॉर्मल सैलरी इनकम है उस पर ये बात हो रही है, उसके अलावा जो 2-3 बड़े स्टेप्स लिए गए अब देखिए आप फिस्कल डेफिसिट का जो टारगेट है उसको FY25 के लिए 4.9% से घटाकर 4.8% पर लाया गया, FY26 के लिए 4.5% से घटाकर 4.4% पर लाया गया। कैपेक्स का नंबर जो पिछले साल जिसको 11.1 लाख करोड़ रखा गया था उसको 10.8 लाख करोड़ पर ला दिया गया, लेकिन वो आप कह सकते हो कि नंबर है आपके पास और जनवरी तक का कैपेक्स आपके पास होगा, और अगले साल का जो कैपेक्स नंबर है उसको 10.8 लाख करोड़ पर रखा गया, जो शायद मार्केट के लिए थोड़ा डिसअपॉइंटिंग है। आई थिंक मार्केट इतने शानदार टैक्स प्रपोजल के बाद भी अगर नहीं चला है तो उसका शायद कुछ लेना देना उस कैपेक्स नंबर से होगा, क्योंकि उसकी भी शायद थोड़ी सी एक्सपेक्टेशन थी कि थोड़ा सा अगर वो बढ़ जाए तो मार्केट के लिए पॉजिटिव होता वो। और बाकी बजट में काफ़ी कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट सब आपके स्क्रीन पर फ्लैश हो रहा है। और एक और इम्पॉर्टेंट नंबर मैं बताना चाहता हूँ हमारे पूरे के पूरे पैनल को, हमारे सारे के सारे गेस्ट को, CNBC आवाज़ इस पूरी बजट स्पीच के दौरान नंबर 1 चैनल है YouTube पर। 5 लाख लाइव व्यूअर्स CNBC आवाज़ पर हैं, जो किसी भी जनरल न्यूज़ चैनल, किसी भी बिजनेस न्यूज़ चैनल, किसी भी हिंदी चैनल, किसी भी इंग्लिश चैनल से एटलीस्ट 2 टाइम्स ज़्यादा हैं। जी हाँ, देखिए हम एक चीज़ बताऊँ मैं आपको, हम हर हफ्ते एक ढिंढोरा नहीं पीटते हैं, लेकिन बजट जैसा दिन एक दिन होता है जिसमें ये मैटर करता है कि कौन से चैनल को आप सुन रहे हैं। और CNBC आवाज़ अपनी क्रेडिबिलिटी
of the taxpayer. The bet is basically that this will drive consumption, this will boost sentiments, and that this will register growth on the scale. There is one sort of fly here which we need to clarify. The Finance Minister Nirmala Sitaraman said that up to 12.75 lakhs is clean, no tax for salaried people, and up to 12 lakhs for others. Now, in that 12 lakhs, she specified twice that capital gains or special income will not be included. We need to see what is the clarification there, whether if you are a retired person and you have sold some shares to sort of pay for your living, whether that gets taxed or not. But this is a bet on growth. And there are a couple of other things that she's done which is very helpful. So, as I said before, that there is the cost of living, cost of governance, and cost of business. Now, she's created scope for ease of living in the sense that she has expanded the TDS limits. She has removed some TCS. She has expanded TCS on remittances for families who have people abroad, and she's removed TCS on education expenses if it's based on a loan. And then there are a whole slew of measures. Now, some of this budget will get lost in the packaging and lost in translation. I hope somebody does a decent job of presenting it again in the sense to convey the factors. There are small points in it, and there are large numbers of numbers. So, for instance, there is this proposal to fund small nuclear projects. The target is, I think, about 100
gigawatts of nuclear.
100 gigawatts. Now, the allocation is 20,000 crores. Each gigawatt costs something like $6 billion. So, how is that funding going to happen? All those details are unknown.
We will come to that, but the big picture story, Rahul, is that you've got the government trying in some way to send out a message to the middle class, which many believe was the most modified middle class 10 years ago, that look, we haven't entirely ignored your concerns. I think that's the big political message, because the sense was that while you were giving Ladli Bahin, various benefits, free bus rides, and other benefits to the poor or those who are below the poverty line, what was the middle class getting from a government that the middle class believed they had an important hand in voting for? You mentioned a Delhi election in 1 week from now, but I think it's beyond just the Delhi middle class. I maintain that voter already votes for the BJP. I think it's in sending a signal. If I am raising the income tax slab for where I don't have to pay tax from 7 lakhs to 12 lakhs, I'm automatically benefiting a large number of people who are precisely those who felt, what is this government giving to me? So that's a fairly substantial jump when you go from 7 lakhs to 12 lakhs. The other slabs are also going to be revised. Importantly, she said she will be bringing a fresh income tax bill next week, where she's spoken that she will focus on Nyay and not Dand. We'll have to see whether that actually happens, because that is where I think far more people will benefit when it comes to business and stirring growth. Because the challenge, it's all very well to have the headline on income tax. The challenge is growth. How she's going to address the growth challenge, we are still not clear.
But there's also about sentiment, Rajiv Mantri.
Absolutely.
What this does is, it answers the question, middle class ko kya diya? Earlier there was a bet on rationalizing corporate taxations. She's also said that there'll be only one cess. So this whole multiplicity of cesses, she's suggesting will be dealt with. What's your reading of the budget?
No, and in the new tax regime, the limit is 12.75 lakhs actually, which is, I feel, a very significant jump up from where we were, around 6.5, 7 lakhs earlier. And now 12.75 lakhs of income will be tax-free. So that is a very big fillip to the people who are just entering the workforce on their first job. They will be outside the tax net. They will get to keep everything they earn.
No, you're betting on them then using that extra money to consume. I mean, that is your
So
bet.
what they do is their choice. It's not a question of government deciding for them what they want to do. If
No,
they want
tell
to
me,
consume,
what
they
has
can
she
consume.
done in this budget to stimulate growth? You see, that's the challenge.
No, she's betting
there's
on consumption,
there's a lot
Rajdeep.
of little tinkering.
No,
the
no,
first
she's
half-
betting on
No,
consumption.
This is a
So
very
she's betting on
important step
consumption
forward.
just as a few years
This is
ago
a
you
very
bet on
important step
corporates.
forward to bring a new direct tax code, which we'll see the bill next week. We have already seen that the limit has been so meaningfully raised. Moreover,
How
when
are
it
you
comes
pushing
to,
growth? I'm asking the question.
you look at all the futuristic areas that they're talking about, nuclear energy, new geospatial mission. So these are all productivity enhancing new industries and new sectors, which for the first time there's a government talking about deep technology in the country, bringing the most cutting edge innovations into our industry, bringing all kinds of R&D programs that will support productivity enhancements.
Growth. How is this budget boosting growth? What was the big idea for growth beyond saying that I bet on the middle class now consuming more with the tax breaks I give them?
So there are two elements of growth. Short-term growth, immediate need to boost consumption from the middle class. So that's what is being addressed on the tax code. Then there's the long-term structural growth that India needs. There's a lot of little initiatives across, whether it's AI, technology, startups, the startup fund, that will stimulate growth longer term, innovation longer term. I think the other thing that will help short-term growth to some extent is this whole emphasis on MSME and job creation. And that MSME investment and the credits she's giving and that credit card that has come up, that will create, release some working capital pressures on the MSMEs because they're always capital starved, and they'll be able to invest, maybe hire more people. That'll spur consumption. So I think this budget is also doing both consumption-led growth to some extent at a smaller level and investment-led, because you're also focusing a lot on import duties reduction, breaks for manufacturing, innovation. I was hoping for R&D tax credits, which I didn't hear, so that hasn't happened. But there is, at least on the manufacturing side, there is some credit being given, so that will boost investment. But yes, I think it's going to be hard for anyone to really figure out what that growth number will be, because there's so many small initiatives that, to work the math, to come up with a number is going to be difficult.
It's interesting, just purely looking at it, therefore, Rahul, as I said earlier today, in terms of transition, if you saw the last budget, so much of talk of unemployment and berozgari. If you saw the 2023 budget, so much of focus on Kisan. I know she started with agriculture as the first engine of growth, but the truth of the matter is, I think it was her final statement to the middle class that effectively is the political messaging of this budget. And I think that's critical, not just for the Delhi elections, but the BJP recognizing, or the Modi government recognizing, that this is the class that drove us to power. We need to send out a message to them and then bet on them consuming more. You're placing a bet that when I change tax slabs, I am incentivizing people. Now with your savings, please go out and consume.
But it's a very big idea. It's not a small idea, Rajdeep. Let's not undermine.
No, what is the big idea?
I'll tell you what
What's
the
the big
idea is.
idea?
So if you see,
There will be
If I'm
no
changing
income tax
7 lakhs to 12 lakhs is not a big idea. Let's
आप
be very
अपनी
clear.
salary देख के बोल रहे हो
No,
ना?
I don't know
ऐसे
what's
मत
the
बोलो.
idea.
No, I'll
Please
tell
tell
you
me
no,
the
what-
idea.
I'll tell you what the idea is. See, here's the deal. If 7 had gone to 9, you can say it's just tinkering. 7 has gone to 12, which basically means,
it's a
and now
really big
first
What's the idea, I asked?
30% taxation was on people above 15 lakhs. That's now gone up to 25 lakhs. So you're trying to kind of send a message that you're trying to rationalize direct taxes and your income tax, which is what a lot of people were
I think
looking
that
out
will
for.
come with the income tax bill. If the income tax bill shows that, yes, just this is really providing the middle class a sense of comfort. That's not an idea yet. That's my view.
You have to look at it in the totality. What does the income tax relief cost the government? 1 lakh crore. So essentially 1 lakh crore has been set free into the economy for consumption, saving, investment, whatever the people decide to do. This is the demand side of the picture. On the supply side of the picture, you've created some impulses in agriculture. I think the Udyam credit idea, which I had sort of been campaigning for, has come through. So that will create impulses at the small and micro level.
That's
And
the
then
credit card scheme.
Credit card for the small and micro enterprises. The other things that are there in the budget from, for urbanization, some of this is like a hope balloon. Some of it is very strategic. The nuclear thing is clearly aimed at getting on the right side of the Trump administration. The tariff levels, bands reduction is to woo the Americans to come. So there are also this NRIs manufacturing in India or giving services in India. So there are a lot of, the story has not been told very well. This is like a Quentin Tarantino film where there is something is up, something is in the second phase, something in the fourth phase. But she has delivered the political message in the last over of the match, so to speak, where India's middle class is being told, we hear you. And there, I think there will be a lot of sentiment boost to the
But a lot of it is about sentiment. I
Yeah.
just want to show you one data set which has just come out. This is not from the budget numbers, but is to do with the budget numbers, where
And of course the market is down.
The red line that you're seeing represents India today, and the others are our competition, whether it's a CNN, News 18, NDTV, Republic World, Times Now. So you see through the budget speech, which started around 11 a.m., the massive lead that India today has versus all competition. So I was just doing the numbers. If you were to aggregate our competitors, you would still not reach the live concurrent viewership of India today throughout the budget speech. So that's quite significant. Just the massive, monstrous lead that India today enjoys over all competition. Interesting live concurrent data this, so it can't be rigged. It's impossible to fix. And the massive boost that you've got, which keeps Rajdeep, India today way ahead of all competition put together.
There's a little GDP story here from Rahul.
If the economy were growing like India today's viewership, then we'd really be on the fast path of becoming Viksit Bharat.
And we're not buying eyeballs, as some people even now attempt to do, even on YouTube increasingly. But, the fact is the sentiment that Rahul mentioned. A lot of budget is about sentiment increasingly. Many of the Modi government in particular, its major legislations are brought outside the budget. That's where it brings in some of its game-changing reforms over the years. Given that there is this sentiment, how do you see it actually translating? The markets, for example, are giving a thumbs down as of now. What explains that? Why is the market sentiment not matching the sense of middle-class sentiment with these tax cuts?
Okay, so I'll give you a simple answer for why the market is not really enthused. And that's because all the measures have been announced for either the villages, the rural areas, MSMEs. There's not much that has been announced for the corporates. And the market...
Nothing wrong in that,
Right.
for a change.
So I'm just saying, so the market reacts to where they can make money. The corporates that they invest in, they've not seen a big change.
What would they have liked?
No, but
that would
can
have
I
triggered
just
that?
press you to say, Punita, the fact that 1 lakh crore rupees is being set free, the government's releasing that, has a multiplier effect of its own. If people have this extra disposable income,
Yes.
they potentially go out and spend part of it, which creates a virtuous consumption cycle. So there is some logic to
Yes.
what is being attempted. Now, the impact it has and the extent to which that money gets spent is a different matter. But that is at least the big idea that Nirmala Sitaraman and and Prime Minister Modi are trying to implement.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So there will be some consumption benefit. The demand will increase for companies on the those that are consumption led. But will it really give them huge growth or boost in earnings? Maybe 1%, 0.5%, or whatever. So I don't know how much it will really change the earnings profile of the
So what
companies.
did they want? What did the markets want? What
No,
did
there
they
is-
want that was not
No,
delivered?
my reading is slightly different. I would say this has got to do with probably a higher expectation of capital expenditure. And as Shankar had pointed out, some of the earlier budget itself on capex has not been fully utilized. So which is why the government has probably kept it where it was, roughly.
I probably
And
I
the
think-
expectation
I
was
think
of
that
higher
we'll have
capital
to see the
expenditure.
details of what is the capex, because she didn't mention whether it's 11 lakh crores again or 12 lakh crores.
10.8, I think.
So that's one story. And the other, I think there is some fine print in this. The stock market is full of chartered accountants who must have now figured out something. And one of my CA friends has written saying that there is a special rate for certain kinds of incomes, which has not been sort of clarified.
No, you're saying there's a TNC. You're
Yeah.
saying there are terms and
Terms
conditions
and,
attached.
conditions apply. So she's saying that there is a special rate income. So basically, this 12 lakh exemption is not without conditions. So,
Okay, so let's try and get Divya Baveja. She's a partner at Deloitte, an expert on taxation. So Divya, try and explain to our viewers as simply as you can on the implications that this rationalization and direct tax structure has on the lives of those who are watching across the income pyramid.
So, thanks, Rahul. So, if I look at, say, take the example of 12 lakhs, which the finance minister mentioned. So, if I were to see the current slabs under the new regime, and if I look at the proposed slabs under the new regime, there will be saving of 80,000 rupees for such individuals. If I were to compare the taxes under the slab which was in the new regime currently in place, and under the new regime which is being proposed as per the new slabs. So I'm just going with the example of 12 lakhs because that is where the finance minister mentioned that there'll be nil tax up to 12 lakh rupees. And for a salaried individual, it will become 12 lakh 75,000 because 75,000 is the standard deduction. So if I take 12 lakh 75,000 rupees, 75,000
No, sure. So that
goes
I've
as standard
understood.
deduction.
She's also said
Yeah.
that cesses and surcharges will be reduced to just one. There'll be just one. She didn't explain that much further, but what did you understand of that? Which are the cesses, surcharges that are likely to go?
See, cesses and surcharge, if I recall, she talked more in the custom tariff concept. I don't think she talked in the context of income tax, but we'll have to see the finance bill and see the fine print to see whether it applies in income tax also or not. Well, that was more in the context of, if I recall correctly, was in the context of the tariff, customs tariff. where
Shankar
she
Iyer
talked
has a
about.
question. Shankar.
So she mentioned twice something about capital gains being not being part of this 12 lakh exemption.
Yes.
Did I hear her
And
right or did I hear her wrong?
That is no. The reason why she said because capital gains is taxed separate. It's under special tax regime because the rates are different. If I were to look at any capital gain, say if I were to look at long-term capital gain, the rates are different. So she said that will be kept out of that. So that is what she had mentioned because here we are looking at the regular rates. Yeah.
And she's also introducing an income tax bill, she says, a week from now.
Yes. Yes.
What
That
does
was
that
what-
hold out for you? Does that give you optimism that while you've touched tax slabs in the budget, you're actually going to give much more in terms of making it easier in terms of compliance and other issues in that bill?
Yes, it does. Because if you recall last year when the budget was announced in July, she did talk about the new income tax bill. And what she mentioned in today's speech also, that the new income tax bill is supposed to make the provisions clearer, simpler, reduce litigation, and also streamline the processes, including the number of provisions that have been reduced. So I'm sure this is going to make it simpler and clearer. That's the intention. So rest we'll have to
adding
see.
to what has happened today, if a week from now we have that income tax bill in place, would you say that's the most significant takeaway for you and will encourage both consumers today and business hopefully in a week from now?
Yes, I'm sure it should. Yes. See, because let's look at one thing. What do people want when they look at any of the tax laws? They want simplicity, clarity, reduce litigation, and make the processes simple. So I think that is the direction in which the new income tax bill should be looking. We should be looking at, which is what even the finance minister mentioned in her speech.
Any other queries?
No, so we'll come back, Divya, in just a moment. I want to understand the focus on deregulation and doing away with laws. Raji Mantri, she's spoken a lot about that, you know.
The regulatory
trying
commission,
to get out of the way, trying to reduce
Yes.
rules by half. The critical question there, of course, will be implementation of what she's saying.
So let's see what shape and form the Regulatory Reforms Commission takes. I will be curious to see who are the members, what is the mandate. The FM explicitly excluded the financial sector from it. So it will probably cover the other industries, not the financial industry, which is fine because we need a lot of regulatory reforms actually for the real economy.
But you know,
The question is
the
that-
main thing is whether
Shankar-
the Regulatory Reform Commission covers the state governments, because the mess is in the state governments.
So she mentioned about collaborating with state governments. I mean, that's why it is
Yeah.
important to see what shape it takes and.
Yeah.
You know, a senior economist who's worked with previous government said everyone wanted a 1991 speech. We have an 1881 type speech, My Baap Sarkar still. Do you think this is still the My Baap
Completely
Sarkar mindset?
unreasonable.
That's something that you've always spoken about, written about. At the end of the day, government knows best. It's very different in that sense to what the chief economic advisor. Show me where the government is saying we are getting out of business. Where is that message gone?
So the expansion of the TDS, the removal of TCS, the Regulatory Reforms Commission seems to be a kind of minor retreat of the government, the state, or the Leviathan as we see it. The My Baap Sarkar, I mean, you know, in a country where 80 crore people are being given free ration and stuff like that, you can't sort of run away from that truth. But the concept of allowing private enterprise to come in, the private partnerships, the effort to bring in private sector into nuclear energy, all of this shows that there is a movement.
And the good
This
news
is a
is,
very significant
and the
move
good
forward.
news is, unlike the previous budget where she was accused at times of going back to old style protectionism, this time there is not a whiff of that. The good news is that instead you're giving hope that you actually realize that policy doesn't work. So you're ready
No,
to.
I don't know whether that's realization or whether that is Uncle Trump.
No, that's the question. But whether it is Uncle Trump or realization, that's good news that you're not doing what you've been accused in the past of doing, of going back to almost a sort of Swadeshi sentiment,
Fair
but
enough.
now saying we're going to cut tariffs where necessary. We're going to sort of encourage people to come and invest in India. So it's a slight move away from the sort of make in India, protect Indian industry. That's good. That's a good sign in this global scenario. Trump will be happy or the Americans will
Raising
be
the
happy.
FDI limit to 100% for insurance.
So
but
that's
let's-
good. That
but
again is a
let's
good
spend
sign.
some time. It also says, Punita, that this is where premiums are fully invested in India. Is that a bit of a dampener? Do you think 100% FDI in insurance will lead to more foreign investment coming into the insurance sector?
Yes, I think so, because you know every company is looking to capture the Indian consumer globally, because it is still the fastest growing set of their growth basket. Everybody wants a piece of this, and so to the extent that they can own that 100%, that future growth makes them want to be here more. They have more control, governance control. Many 100% also means board control and lot of say in how you do
Joint
it.
venture partners and so on.
Yeah, so I think definitely it'll spur. One of the other things that
It
I
also
was
will
thinking.
enable listing of some of this insurance. That, like for instance, they have allowed for health and general health and life to be listed. Now the IRDA is saying that you should list if you've been in business for so many years. So the foreigners will
certain
feel
major-
more confident of listing.
And certain major insurance giants, like Berkshire Hathaway of the US, they've always stayed away from the Indian market because they never wanted to get into a situation where they have to
Yeah.
kind of have a joint venture.
Right.
So now they can come in directly, own the entire business, and as Punita ji said, take part in the great Indian consumer story.
So 2 points I was just thinking about your question, Rahul. Why is the market down? One, maybe the slippage on the fiscal deficit. I think we've not talked about that. There is, she acknowledged the slippage, so bond yields could be going up. It's hard to really assess, But I think this budget, despite the consumption boost, will not be inflationary because there's enough supply side measures that have been taken. So consumption will increase, but inflation will not. That's at least my initial read without having read the fine print, which is good. But bond yields will go up because government, fiscal slippage has been mentioned, and we don't know what that will be next year because a lot of these are long-term growth initiatives and, fellowships, scholarships, investment in, MSMEs. There's a lot of money going there, but, how will that be financed? It's not clear to me.
Explain to me why last year's capex budget, the exact figures that are there, last year's capex budget estimate was 11.11 lakh crores. It's now down to 10.18 lakh crores. Explain that. Why would that have
happened? Because there was
happened?
an election, a lot of focus was on the election. During that period, the model code of conduct was in place. So a lot of the capacity expansion budget that was there in the first quarter did not get utilized. In the December numbers that came out yesterday, Rajdeep, government capex is up 95% on a year-on-year basis for that month. So they're now trying to catch up in what was left. But obviously, in the first 3 months of the year and in the initial few weeks of the government coming to power, enough wasn't being spent by the government on capacity expansion.
But Rahul, I have sort of looked at this explanation of elections. Now, most of this, the budget came in July, okay? And 11.11 lakh crores. A large number of these bigger projects, the large projects, are cleared much in advance. I mean, it's only brought into the allocation system. So I'm not fully convinced whether it was the election. I think what has happened here is state governments have struggled to put their part funding in because some of these projects are part funded by the state government. The other thing which Mr. Gadkari and others have been speaking about is the states lack the capacity to execute the plans to bring projects to the plug-and-play system. Now, what has happened after the 5.4% GDP number is that everybody has got activated and said, okay, we got to fix this because the year-end figure should not drop below 6. Now, I still suspect that the year-end number may not be 6.4 or 6.2. I still feel it will be closer to 6. So there is this pressure that has made this 95. I mean, there could also be a base effect in the December number. So we have to look at what happened in last December. I think the ability of governments to execute large projects is seriously suspect.
Is there a recognition of that as well? Just as I said, the recognition that maybe protectionism is not the way forward.
State governments.
Is there a recognition of that?
Basically, state governments, for instance, Tamil Nadu has had no problem getting FDI, no problem getting investment. All the large projects are going there. They have no land problem. They have no labor problem. The largest number of women workers in manufacturing, electronics, everything. So all it requires is for other states to look, boss, what are you doing right that we need to do? I mean, Tamil Nadu is on per capita level competing with other high, middle income or high income countries. In terms of its investment push, they are competing with Vietnam to get investments. No, that's the kind of thing that, that kind of state government
most states actually which have that kind of an approach and
Bihar better start doing more investment given how many SOPs they have received.
No, but that's because of the election. See, when there was an election in Andhra Pradesh, everything went...
Unfortunately, none of this will be received in there. I mean, for the...
Why? They build new airports?
So look at...
there's a greenfield airport, there's a Makhana board. For example, the Makhana board. You see,
Rajdeep, you have to look at the per capita geography of India's economy. India's average per capita income is somewhere near 2 lakh rupees, whatever. Okay, Telangana is highest at 3.5 lakh rupees. Uttar Pradesh is around 84. Bihar is at 54. The district of Shehar in Bihar has a per capita income of 18,000. So for them to recognize an airport and all is like
there's a Makhana board, expansion of Patna airport, IIT Patna gets expanded, the Kosi irrigation project comes out, National Food Technology Institute. Arey, elections ki baat hai bhai, usko bhi to focus karna, you're an election towards the latter part of the year.
Yeah, but I think, going ahead, that is going to be a challenge from, the fact is, and that's nothing to do with this government. That's been a challenge that every government has had over the last 50 years. How are you going to ensure that the faster growing states that the slower growing states in any way can catch up with the faster growing states. It is a serious problem. Now, you can't expect the budget or the finance minister to resolve that. The execution capacity of different states is at a very different stage. Different states have have shown the capacity to embrace the new world. Others have stayed behind. Bihar is not going to change simply because 3 projects have come to Bihar. This is the kind of tokenism, frankly. It's not going to change the map of Bihar. Bihar needs execution capacity starting in Patna. It's not going to change because of what happens in Delhi.
Definitely a feel-good factor that Biharis should feel.
No, but
it's 20
in
years.
July there were so many schemes for Bihar. Has anything changed in 7 months? It hasn't.
Rajdeep, it's 20 years almost since Nitish Kumar has been in
Yes, I was just going to say that.
power. Okay, all the Suraj talk, everything. I mean, how many industries have gone to Bihar? It can be the food basket in many ways.
No, I think
And 20 years is a long time to make
so
a
I've got
difference.
Niranjan Hiranandani
quality
joining us. He's the
among those
managing director of the real estate Hiranandani Group. Thank you very much, Mr. Hiranandani, for joining us. There was a reference to incentives for a second flat being purchased. So, A, specifically on the real estate sector, and B, more broadly as far as India Inc. is concerned, your takeaways from this budget?
I think a couple of things which have been flagged off. Number one, you have a new income tax bill which is coming in, but you still have 85 clauses which are amending the present law. So we have to see what the new bill is going to become effective from. Is it going to be effective from this year or is it going to be for the subsequent year? So we'll have to see how that bill comes into force, because the present law, they have already proposed 85 things. The positive 2 points which I can immediately see on the housing sector. One is about the 2 houses. This was a little not clear that if you had 2 houses, you were still supposed to pay tax on the fact that you were having more than 1 house. One may be in the place of work and one in the place where you have a village or whatever it is. So I think that exemption has come through. So that's important that has happened. They've given support for mergers and acquisitions, because what happens is that a large number of companies are doing the merger in the real estate sector, especially when investments coming in from FDI and other things. So I think they've tried to do it. The most important part of it for a lot of people who have invested money but their projects are stuck has been the reinstigating of the Swami Fund. Earlier, they had done 10,000 crores 6-7 years ago, and that was helping. And they've said about 1 lakh apartments, and I believe the second one is 15,000. But my belief is that that's not adequate enough. We really need to do it in a much bigger way. And it's possible to do not only with the government funding, but many of the institutions are there. If it can be the last in, first out, which is given to Swami Fund, if that same benefit was given to any other institution, I think we could have 20 Swami Fund, which would take care of the entire deficit of funding which is required. One of the most important things which are kept in a minority of thought, but I think it's very important, is skill development, or the excellence of centers of excellence of skills. I think a lot of emphasis needs to be done for construction workers, because on one side, we are deficit for construction workers. L&T just made a statement about, I think, 45 days back, that they are short of 25,000 workers in the skill sector. And we are now talking about plumbers, electrician, labor of that kind. While my own company needs about 500 workers, we are short of skills. So I think on one side, we have unemployment, and if we can increase this. The last point which I want to add is the fact that I don't think the investment looks big enough, because if you have to go and grow to the target which we have for 2047, we need to grow at least at 8.5 to 9 to maybe double digit. And for that, a focus on housing and urban infra generally needs to be further increased. So I think there's a little short number there, because if you want to reach your 2047, manufacturing alone will not be able to reach that number, and especially the unemployment. So I think government may have to do a rethink in terms of how much investment they can put into housing and urban infra. You'll solve your housing problem, as well as you'll be able to get the growth story double digit, which can do 2047 to the extent that you want. These are the immediate points which are there. Oh, one point. Fiscal consolidation she is focused on, which is a good thing. But I thought if she even exceeded that and put more money into investment, I would have kind of liked it a little more. So I think the focus is on consolidation, but I would have thought that she would have thought of putting in more investment, especially because last year we actually had less investment because of the elections which took place both in the central elections as well as Maharashtra. So I think these are the points which I think are flagged off at the first instance. We'll have to see the fine print and see what are the 85 clauses which are amended, and then probably come back to you.
Mr. Hiranandani, thank you for joining us. We look forward to having you back for more later. We want to go across to Syed Zafar Islam from the BJP. Mr. Islam, you're seeing the markets slightly in the red, both the Nifty and the Sensex down today. And the second question about growth outlook. The chief economic advisor said the growth outlook will be 6.3 to 6.8%. If you think that the slowdown in growth is just temporary and very short term, then why is the government not aiming for higher growth, at least 7% plus growth for next year? The growth outlook will be 6.3 to 6.8%. If you think that the slowdown in growth is just temporary and very short term, then why is the government not aiming for higher growth, at least 7% plus growth for next year?
Zafar Islam?
He can hear us, but I think he has a TV on. Just turn the TV off. Go on.
My phone has disconnected. I don't know whether you are able to hear me or not, but let me respond to you because the mic is on. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please go on.
Disconnected. I don't know whether you are able to hear me or not. But yeah, Rahul. So let me respond to your question. First of all, compliments to the Honorable Finance Minister, Honorable Prime Minister for acceding to the request of middle class, lower strata of the society, and of course the marginalized section of the society, and particularly the taxpayers. Because the big relief, nobody on the street was expecting that the minimum threshold will be 12 lakh. Everybody was talking about 10 lakh, but today they have surprised everyone, and everybody in the country is happy because it is not only 3.5 crore, but entire families benefited from this 3.5 crore. Actually, if 5% in every family, then at least 15-20 crore people have been benefited because of this.
Go ahead.
A lot of disturbance. Can you just take me?
Okay, let's try and fix that. We'll come back to you for more in just a moment. There are lots of political reactions coming in from Parliament. Leaders from the government and many from the opposition are speaking, reacting to this budget. So what we'll do is play out some reactions and give you a flavor of how politicians cutting across political lines are really looking at this budget. The opposition, quite predictably, Rajdeep, looking for gaps, and we'll also try and recap some of the key aspects from the Finance Minister's speech. Here she is, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitaraman.
Slabs and rates are being changed across the board to benefit all taxpayers. The new structure will substantially reduce the taxes of the middle class and leave more money in their hands, boosting household consumption, savings and investment. In the new tax regime, I propose to revise tax rate structures as follows. 0 to 4 lakh rupees nil, 4.8 lakh rupees to 4 to 8 lakh rupees 5%, 8 to 12 lakh rupees 10%, 12 to 16 lakh rupees 15%, 16 to 20 lakh rupees 20%, 20 to 24 lakh rupees 25%, and above 24 lakh rupees 30%. To taxpayers up to 12 lakh of normal income other than special rate income such as capital gains. I read that again. To taxpayers up to 12 lakh of income other than special rate income such as capital gains, tax rebate is being provided in addition to the benefit due to slab rate reduction in such a manner that there is no tax payable by them.
मैं मां लक्ष्मी से प्रार्थना करता हूं कि देश के हर गरीब एवं मध्यम वर्ग समुदाय पर मां लक्ष्मी की विशेष कृपा रहे.
Okay, so there you saw the action and then the reaction. The Prime Minister speaking about Ma Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, shining on the middle class, and shine she did to the extent possible in the union budget, though Rajdeep's not fully very convinced about it.
No, I'm not convinced that it's a big idea. I'm convinced that I think the Prime Minister...
How else do you spur consumption demand?
No, I'm not convinced.
Saying if it doesn't happen, then
How else do you spur consumption demand?
There's a difference between an idea. This is the fact.
The biggest question was, how do you spur consumption demand?
I'm not sure.
Amount to much.
I remember a few years ago when corporate tax cuts were there, you said it is going to spur investment. It didn't happen.
No,
my limited point, trust deficit is still a major issue. I concede and I believe that by doing what you've done, you've sent a very strong political message. You've got the sentiment right. But there is a difference. There is a difference between getting the sentiment right, which I think the government has done and has succeeded in doing
what's
that.
your big idea? How else can she spur consumption demand? She's given cash in the hands of the Indian consumer to go out and spend, which has a cycle of its own.
We spoke earlier of the budgets which are seen as landmark budgets, the budgets which change thinking radically. I still believe that remains a problem that this government has had for the last 10 years. There has been a reluctance at one level to do that big idea, which is actually going to take you from 6% to 8 to 9 or 10%. Nobody has addressed to me, how are you going to move to 8 to 10%? Just now you heard Niranjan Hiranandani say that. How are you going to Viksit Bharat 2047 with what you've done today?
In a single budget, nothing can take us to that level because now we are a 4 trillion GDP economy.
No, it's not about a single budget.
From 1991, a child or infant doesn't grow at the same rate as an adult.
I am asking you to actually tell me this. Everybody recognizes that the biggest challenge at the moment is slowing down of growth. Are you telling me this budget is going to kickstart growth? That's all I'm asking.
All the technology and innovation efforts that have been mentioned in the budget, all of them are important to go to a 10 trillion GDP level. Now, no one wants to talk about that. We simply want to fixate on whether it became 10 lakhs, 12 lakhs.
I have asked a simple question. The challenge before the FM and the government is, how are you going to kickstart a slowing economy? Show me what in this budget is going to transform and push this economy to a greater height.
There is a very
in the previous budget, in June, July, various figures were done. Those have also not been met. Whether it's tax earnings, whether it's... let's talk about hard data. 8 months ago versus today.
Yeah, you're right. So one thing that I think is missing, one big idea, is that it is not really pushing private investment. It is not incentivized private sector to invest in a massive way. That could have been one big idea. There's been lots of little initiatives, simplifications, but I don't think the private sector is going to rush in and start adding capacity.
No, but they already gave a massive corporate tax cut.
Yeah.
What else can the government do? I mean, the expectation also has to be rational.
I said this earlier, where capacity utilization is not picking up, why should somebody invest? It never makes any sense. If you're running a business, you look at the capacity utilization and accordingly you will make your decisions.
No, and there, for example...
And the reason I said capacity utilization has not been exhausted is because productivity enhancing reforms always create capacity. There is a greater scope to sweat your existing asset base and thus you delay your capex.
So as I said, we've got lots of political reactions coming in. Let's listen to some political reactions coming from right outside Parliament. Leaders across the political spectrum reacting to this budget.
गठबंधन का सहयोगी होने के नाते मैं हमारे प्रधानमंत्री और माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी का विशेष तौर पर धन्यवाद करूंगा जिस तरीके से विकसित देश बनाने की सोच के साथ ये सरकार कार्य कर रही है उस सोच को और मजबूती देने वाला ये बजट है जहां इस बजट में अमीर और गरीब के बीच की दूरी को कम करने की सोच दिखाई गई है वहीं इस बजट में गांव और शहर के बीच की दूरी को भी कम करने की दिशा दिखाई गई है
हर एक विषय पर पूर्ण रूप से अध्ययन करके एक नया मानचित्र तय किया गया है और सबसे बड़ी बात कि हमारे जितने भी टैक्स पेयर्स हैं उनको इतनी बड़ी राहत दी गई है 12 लाख रुपए तक कोई टैक्स नहीं, और हर एक ब्रैकेट में आप देखोगे तो करीब करीब 40 से 25% की राहत हाई इनकम टैक्स पेयर के लिए तक भी दिया गया है। तो ये एक कॉम्पोजिट बजट है, एक बजट है जो भारत को आगे ले जाएगा, और एक ऐसा बजट है जो भारत को केवल आत्मनिर्भर नहीं लेकिन भारत को एक विश्व गुरु के रूप में स्थापित करेगा।
बीजेपी के वरिष्ठ नेता विजन पांडा इस वक्त हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं। सर, आज बजट पेश हुआ, अब आप दिल्ली में चुनाव प्रभारी भी हैं। अब ये कहा जा रहा है कि ये बजट जो है वो दिल्ली चुनाव और बिहार चुनाव के मद्देनजर रखा गया है। आप इसको किस तरह से देखते हैं?
दिल्ली चुनाव तो एज इट इज हम जीत रहे थे, दिल्ली के लोग त्रस्त हो चुके थे, ये आपदा से मन बना चुके थे। ये जो बजट पूरा भारत के लिए है, जो हमारा ट्रेंड रहा है पिछले 10 साल से, 25 करोड़ लोग गरीबी रेखा से ऊपर आए हैं, हम 5th लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी बन गए हैं और फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग इकोनॉमी कई साल से रहे हैं पूरे दुनिया भर, 3rd लार्जेस्ट को जा रहे हैं। ये बजट उसी दिशा में और भी हमें बढ़ोतरी है।
लेकिन सर, जिस तरह का जो इनकम टैक्स रिलीफ दिया गया है, इससे आपको लगता है किस तरह से कॉमन मैन को, मिडिल मैन को फायदा पहुंचेगा?
ये गरीब कल्याण जितने योजनाएं हैं उसको और भी बढ़ोतरी दिया गया है।
I have not gone through the full details of the budget, but anyhow what I have seen in the electronic media when the budget was presented in Lok Sabha, she has taken several good points to give benefit to various sectors, including the middle class will get more benefit. And agriculture sector, medical sector, and so many areas she has covered. I welcome this budget.
जो सरकार मरने वाले आंकड़ों को न दे सके, हम इनके किस आंकड़े को मान लें?
अखिलेश जी, सरकार ने कहा 13
मैं अभी भी कह रहा हूँ 40 करोड़ लोगों का जो सपना दिखाया था, हम तो ये भी मांग कर रहे हैं कि अगर महाकुंभ में उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार को बजट की कमी थी तो बजट क्यों नहीं दे रहे हैं आप? आज तो बजट पेश हुआ है, 10,000 करोड़ और दे दें उसको बजट के लिए।
आम आदमी के लिए कुछ नहीं है, क्योंकि आप